Quarantine. Good morning. It's 9:30 and I'd like to call the January. Good morning. I'd like to call it January 9th, 2024 council meeting to order. It's 9:30 a.m. Wanted to jump in to make sure we records it as 9:30 and not 9:31. First item of business is approval of the agenda. In terms of items that need to be discussed, starting with item 2.1, item 3.1, item 4.1, item 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. I'd like to add 7.3, 8.1, 8.2, and all of section 11, that's 11.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. CIO, do you have any?
Mr. Reeve, we'd like to remove 11.2. That's advice from officials land. We'll just bring it ahead to a future meeting. It's not time sensitive.
We'll delete 11.2. The other one I'd like to add, there's request for a letter of support regarding the CEIP. And that would be number 9.1. And that came in after the council deadline and needs a reply before the next meeting. So it's CEIP letter of support. Other additions are Councilor Holland.
Thank you. 5.1, please. And did you mention 7.2?
No.
Okay, 7.2, please. You mentioned 7.3, 7.4, please.
Okay. Councilor Minns?
Sure, I'll go 7.3 is on there. I'll do 7.5.
There's a okay. There's a clear recommend. So just if you're doing it just because we often talk about delegations, there's a clear recommendation to bring it back to the next meeting.
Yeah, I just want to talk about that.
Okay. Yeah, 7.5.
And then 8.1A.
8.1A. Sorry, if I didn't add that, I meant to add that.
Okay, perfect. And I think that's it, and I will approve the agenda.
Okay, other items to add or delete? Seeing none, we'll go through them again. CIO?
Sorry, Ms. Chair. Ms. Blair would just like to clarify one item that you moved.
Did you want to speak on item 3.1 or 3.3?
3.3.
Okay.
So going through the list, I have 2.1, 3.3, 4.1, 5.1. That's all of item 6 at 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, item 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, 8.1A, 8.2, 9.1, item 11.1, 11.3, 11.4, 11.5, 11.6. We're deleting 11.2. We're adding 9.1, which is the CEIP letter of support. And I would like to also propose to you that we move item 8.2 calendars to happen immediately before item 6. And just to organize, because that may impact the decision in 6. Councillor Holland?
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure 8.1B was there just for a quick question.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
That's only okay. Any further additions, deletions, amendments? Seeing none, Councillor Minns has moved the adoption of the agenda as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion is 9-0, and the motion is adopted. Next item of business is item 3.3. I put that on because I think there's a couple of corrections that need to occur in there. If you look at page 12 of your agenda, the clarifications that I think need to occur as it relates to resolution 23686 and 687, we just need to note that that was one amendment and the question was split. And then following 687, we need to record that Councillor Kapitanek moved third reading of the bylaw and that it was ultimately, instead of saying motion carried, it would say suspended by referral because that motion was on the table and remains on the table. That's page 12 of your agenda. And then I think this may require us to just defer approving these minutes to the next meeting where we can ask administration to double check the recording. But when I look at items 23, 689, 690, and 691, I think 689 should actually be numbered 691. My memory of the discussion, but also the logic of we had a motion to approve first reading. We had debate, we had an amendment on that, we had further debate, and then we voted on both the amendment and the motion. And then following that, there was a motion to refer it off to legal counsel as well. Because if we'd moved to refer it to legal counsel first, we wouldn't have done the second two things. Yeah, it's just out of order. Is there anybody that doesn't make sense to? I think the answer is really to have admin just double check, and so it would be reasonable to take a motion to refer this to the next council meeting for approval. Councillor Holland so moves. Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion to refer the minutes to the next council meeting for approval, all those in favor?
Aye.
The motion is adopted and the count is 9-0. Our delegation is not here. 5.1, Councillor Holland, you asked that to be on the agenda. Do you have a motion you'd like to make?
Get to the page. I really need to get back on the printouts. There we go. I would like to make a motion to accept the report as information and further to direct administration to draft a letter to Aspen View School Division in support of the Rochester School remaining open, similar to.
Slow down,
Pardon?
just slow down. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
Secretary can keep up.
Sure, to accept the report as information and further to direct administration to draft a letter to Aspen View School Division in support of Rochester School remaining open, similar to the letter that was done for the Grassland School.
So Councillor Holland has moved that council receive this report as information and further to direct information to draft a letter, to direct administration to draft a letter to Aspen View Public Schools in support of the school in Rochester remaining open. I'm going to say using the letter of the 10th of March 2020 regarding Grassland as a model. Is that fair? You want to speak to it?
I can wait till the end if you like.
Well, you could both. You can speak to introduce it and you can have a concluding remark.
Well, in my personal opinion, I think it is extremely important that county and council support our schools and our hamlets and having those schools within. And I think it is extremely important that Rochester School remain open.
Other discussion? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Just for clarity, I believe the letter that's included in our agenda package on page 29 is quite focused on the library within the school remaining open and that service to the community, not necessarily the school itself. So are we focusing on the library remaining open? Is that the spin?
As I mentioned, it would be similar to that letter, but it would be in support of keeping the Rochester School open, as well as the library that is within the school.
Other comments? Seeing none. Councillor Holland, do you want a final word?
Thank you. No, I think it's just really important that we lobby for this.
In terms of the split the question, it's two distinct propositions. So the motion is to receive the report for information and further direct administration to draft a letter to Aspen View Public Schools in support of keeping the Rochester School open, using the letter of the 10th of March 2020 regarding the Grassland School as a model. On the first half of the motion, that council receive this report as information. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is adopted 9-0. On the second component of the motion, that administration be directed to draft a letter to Aspen View Public Schools in support of the school remaining open using the letter of the 10th of March 2020 regarding Grassland as a model. All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion is adopted. The count is 9-0. Calendars 8.2. CAO, I'd like, if you want to open with your comment regarding Mr. Legore.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Reeve. So as council's aware, we've been trying to schedule a follow-up with Mr. Legore, who helped council with CAO recruitment about orientation to the new CAO. It's something left unfinished and was part of the contract that council had with Mr. Legore and Transitional Solutions. He's given a date of he's got the morning of February 13th open. It conflicts with the county council meeting.
So
And it
in
also-
discussion, do you think that it would be wise to tackle that in the morning and then postpone county council to say 1 o'clock?
Yep.
And with the idea that administration would work to keep the agenda as light as possible. The CIO and I would make sure the critical stuff is at the front of the agenda, including any closed session items that need to come, so that if we hit a time deadline later in the day, we can adjourn and defer the rest to the February 29th meeting. So I think that does that work for everybody? Councillor Holland?
I'm sorry, I missed the date.
The 13th of February,
February 13th.
we have council that day. the
So it's a
proposal
regular
is to-
council day. You just have the Doug Legore session in the morning and then regular council in the afternoon. And we try to keep the agenda short.
The proposal is to book Doug Legore at 9:30 in the morning and council at 1 p.m. Since we're already planning to be here, is there any reason to object to that? Okay. Okay. Other amendments to the calendar, starting with Councillor Gerlich and working around. Councillor Gerlich? Any amendments to the calendar?
No.
Councillor Kapitanek? Oh, your microphone, please.
The 15th multiplex meeting.
Okay.
9:30 at the multiplex, and just through the chair to the CEO, did we confirm that town meeting evening before the tri-council?
No, I can address that.
Okay, so
The
that's-
town feels that it's not necessary.
Okay, I'm just crossing that right off my calendar. That's all, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Anderson?
Thank you. I have no additions at this time.
I would strike Greater North from the 29th. That's been moved to the 26th of February. And that's it for me. Councillor Wallach.
We have a farm women's meeting on the 12th this week. And on the February calendar, the farm women's conference is on the 8th, not the Friday. Yeah, it's a Thursday.
Awesome.
And I think that's it.
Okay, Councillor Chamzik.
February 12th, FCSS, 10 a.m. And then on the 23rd, I have two Northern Lights meeting.
Okay, So that's FCSS at 10 a.m. on the 12th of February and Northern Lights Library meetings on the 23rd. Councillor Holland.
Thank you. Nothing to report, just a quick request though, when these are updated, if they could be sent out again, please. Thank you so much.
Councillor Mintz.
February 7th, Alice meeting in Westlock.
Councillor Cromwell.
Thank you. I have nothing to add.
So do we need to go over those again? Are we okay with that? And Ms. Blair has it. Is there a motion to approve the calendar as amended? Councillor Chamzik has moved. The calendars be adopted as amended. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? The calendars are adopted. The count is 9-0. Next item of business is item 6.1. For those of you reading ahead, you'll know why we want to talk about calendars first, because it relates to the recommended motion. Councillor Holland.
I'd like to,
I would propose that the public hearing on this be either kicked forward to the 29th in discussion with administration to make sure we have good time for council in the afternoon of that day and there's no restrictions on the public hearing time.
so you'd like it for the 29th
I
of
would
February?
suggest we.
So if we'd like to go ahead with the recommendation that the bylaw 014-2023 be given first reading as presented, and that administration plan for a public hearing for bylaw 014-2023 on February 29th, 2024 at what
9:30.
time? 1:30?
9:30.
9:30 a.m.
That's-
Please.
That's our regular start time.
Sounds good.
And usually we start those late because we have to open the council meeting first. So I don't know, maybe we should start them at 9:35, but anyway. There's a motion put forward that council approve first reading of bylaw 014-2023 as presented in the administration plan for a public hearing of bylaw 014-2023 on the 29th of February 2024. In terms of discussion, I'd like to ask administration why we haven't switched that bylaw over to 2024 numbering instead of 2023, given that its entirety will be presented in the 2024 year.
We choose a bylaw number as we're working on the file, and so administration assigns a number. And this file, has been worked on for a number of months prior to now.
Okay. Other discussion on the question of the moving the first reading of this? Seeing none, on the question of the adoption of first reading of 014-2023 and scheduling the public hearing at 9:30 on February 29th, all those in favor?
Aye.
The motion opposed, I guess. The motion is approved or adopted. The count is 9-0. Page 108 in your agenda is okay, so we have a case where there's a standing motion to approve third reading on the table that was moved by Councillor Kapitanek on the 12th of December. There's been some subsequent amendments by legal counsel. And that occurs on page 116. In your agenda under item C, the last sentence in red there is a duplication of the sentence before. And so I think it would be just in order for administration to delete that without really a lot of work from council. The language on the third line is mildly different than was approved through the amendment process at our last meeting. Simplest way to handle that is actually to look for unanimous consent to withdraw that third reading and then to move third reading again as presented, given that the majority of council supported the presentation that's in front of us now. And that way we kind of stay within our rules. So is someone willing to seek, is there unanimous consent to withdraw the third reading of the I can't remember what the resolution number would be, but to withdraw that. Is there unanimous consent on, can I call the question for unanimous consent on withdrawing third reading?
Aye.
Okay, so that is done. In terms of moving third reading as presented, Councillor Kapitanek has moved third reading of the Code of Conduct bylaw as presented in your package, minus the duplicate sentence. Any further discussion on this item? We went round on this one a fair bit. Okay, on the question of the adoption of third reading of bylaws 0162023, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? There is, but the motion is adopted. The count is 9-0. Six point three, CAO, you asked to speak to this before we start.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, there seemed to be some discussion at the previous meeting. I just wanted to interject and indicate this, when the bylaw was presented for first reading, this was simply administration's recommendation. I had not consulted either through Reeve or Deputy Reeve prior to bring this ahead, and it was based on convention that I've seen in other places. It had been noted in many places that a Deputy Reeve is generally automatically the chair of committee of the whole. That doesn't mean that this council has to do it. That's why I made my recommendation. Very similarly to in an urban municipality, when they rotate the deputy mayor position about every 6 months, it's usual that the deputy mayor normally just chairs the committee of the whole. That's why we made the recommendation. And I just wanted to clarify that. It had nothing to do with consultation with the Reeve and Deputy Reeve ahead of time.
So administration has referred this per council direction to our legal. As noted in the package, they've made a couple of minor tweaks to the language. Is there someone willing to move second reading? Councillor Holland?
Actually, before we go ahead, I just have a question.
Sure.
Being that we also have two other council committees, Budget and Finance and Policy Review, and they each have policies that specify their vice chair and their chair positions and how they're done. Would it be prudent to hang on to this bylaw, take it to Cal, rescind policy review and the budget and finance policies, and incorporate them into this procedural bylaw, so that we have everything in one? We're not running back and forth. It's all clean. We've ended messing around with this bylaw because we bring it back so many times.
Maybe let the CAO answer, but I don't think that those are conditions precedent. We can, if you want to discuss those other two committees at Cal, that's something you can do at committee of the whole already. It can come up there.
Right,
So-
but that would mean bringing back the bylaw again
To
to incorporate it into the bylaw and remove them from the policies.
CAO, thoughts, guidance?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through the council, we could review that with legal, whether or not it's more prudent to bring those other committees of council and incorporate them in the procedural bylaw. They're not technically county council meetings, whereas a regular council meeting and a committee of the whole are council meetings. So I have not seen that in other places. So that's just, I'm basing it on my convention, what I've seen. Many places actually don't have those committees anymore. As soon as they adopt a committee of the whole, they try to do away with those committees. I think I've advised council of that. We could check with legal. I don't know that it really would help you in any way, but I understand what you're saying. It would be in one place. I haven't seen it in other procedural bylaws in other municipalities that council committees are also addressed, but we could research that.
Is there anyone willing to move a motion? Counselor Anderson,
Thank you. I'll move second reading of the bylaw 0172023 as presented.
so there's a motion to move second reading of bylaw 0172023 as presented. Is there any discussion? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of the motion 0172023 as presented, all those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Counselor Gerlich, how are you voting? Okay, so the count is 7-2. Second reading is adopted. Is anyone willing to move third reading? Counselor Mins? Is there any Counselor Mins has moved third reading of 0172023. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of the motion to approve third reading of 0172023, all those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
The count is 7-2 and third reading is adopted. We are at item number 7.2. Counselor Holland, you wanted to speak to this, or you wanted to move a motion, I assume, first.
Thank you. I see, just bear with me while I get rid of this gray box and try and find the page number, which is 141. Gotta get in here. There we go. All right, so the recommendation, and I just wanted to ask clarity before we put the motion on the floor. The recommendation mentions that council approve policy 6810 for naming municipal assets. In the letter that was written, it was recommended that the Baptiste Lake Drive in the Pack Beach area be changed to Pack Beach Drive. So I'm just wondering if this recommendation includes that change of that name, or is that something that is separate and apart from this?
It doesn't, it's not, the change isn't in the name, in the recommendation, so I'd say no, but I'm gonna ask Director Whaley to.
Through the chair to Councillor Holland, because you have implemented full civic addressing, the Pack Beach or Baptiste Drive are not official names. So there is no recommendation to change.
Just a quick follow-up, if I may, please.
Yep.
So there is no signage that says Baptiste Lake Drive or Pack Beach or anything like that?
Through the chair to Councillor Holland, if there is, sorry, I have not been out there. If there is, it is unofficial signage and not official municipal signage.
So the person at the table who knows the roads probably better than anybody in the room.
And
I don't know if it's appropriate, but we're just gonna ask to. Counselor Mins?
I'll
third time?
actually cut in there and say that I don't really know. Cause like out west, you automatically think of Pack Beach. It's like you just turn on the road and go that way, and I've never noticed a sign there that says it.
I mean, I think that I congratulate administration's initiative on trying to solve the problem right away. I wonder if it'd be appropriate to just have a more open discussion about the policy itself at committee of the whole and bump the policy over to committee of the whole for a brief discussion. But is Councillor Holland, are you willing to?
I'm happy with the policy. I think it's great. It's an awesome start. And as we all know, policies can be brought back and changed and messed around with. So I'm ready to go ahead and
Would you move a motion?
put this forward as the council approved policy 6810, the naming municipal assets. Please and
So,
thank you. And well done.
The motion on the floor is that council approve policy 6810, naming of municipal assets. Councillor Holland, you moved the motion. Did you want to address it at any more length before we open the floor to other discussion?
No, I'm happy with what the report and the policy itself. And like I say, well done.
Okay. Other discussion? Councillor Cromwell? No. I mean, when I read it, I noticed, a number of spelling mistakes. Certainly in terms of the Canadian English conventions. So we should fix that just as a standard we could live to. I had some questions when I read it. 3.3, there's an asterisk after must. I don't know if that's you type like I do, or if it's references to something else, but I couldn't see another place that the asterisk would refer to. And before you speak, because then you can answer both at once. 4.1 triple I, names must include a write-up. I actually found myself asking, what does this mean? And one of the things, we've talked as a council, we implement policies and we change bylaws. One of the lessons that I've taken from our work so far is that once in a while we need to step back and say, okay, if I was going to do this now, what are the steps I would take? Would I understand what I had to do it? And when I read this, thought, okay, if I want to rename, my road, Joe Gerlach Drive, what would be the steps I need to take? So that's where, what is it actually?
To the chair, my apologies, the asterisks, I should have taken that out. I was trying to do asterisks as requirements under the I and double I underneath that. And I can't get an asterisk as one of those options, so that was my fault. And in the naming application, that would be if somebody were to submit it, or we could develop a application form for somebody to submit a recommendation.
So do you feel like that sort of duplicates the justification for I would like to name this item, road, building, whatever, this name for these reasons? Is that? How does I differ from triple I?
Well, the justification being, here is why I want to, and then here's a write-up as to why you should.
Okay.
So one is more my own thought process, and one is, here's why you should think like me.
Okay. And the last question that I had with it, so we have 10.4 that kind of clarifies that renaming of significant municipal assets recommended by the admin to the council for final approval. Is that something that should be under its own category, where basically, just to clarify, final approving of all naming rests with council? Or is there a situation where something could be named without it running across council's desk? Because it's baked into a section right now that's just about renaming stuff versus something that applies to the whole policy.
So to the chair, currently, Athabasca County would not necessarily send out a request for bidders to sponsor a room per se. So as we grow and have more economic development and things like that, then that portion would be developed out. But currently right now, because that would be a monetary inclusion, it's just included so that it can grow later.
Okay. Other discussion? Seeing none. On the question of the adoption of the motion to approve policy 6610, naming of municipal assets, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The count is 8-1 and the motion is adopted. Uh, 7.3, I asked for that to be on the agenda. Is anyone prepared to make the recommended motion? Councillor Anderson? Thank you. So the motion is that county receive the report for information and provide, sorry, that actually doesn't even work, and provide direction. I asked to put that on partially because, CIBC claims that they've engaged key stakeholders, but they've not had any contact with the county. And so it's disappointing that their engagement seems to be limited to sticking a note to the front door. This affects our residents, it affects people in the villages nearby, and it affects people obviously in the village of Boyle. And so while I would acknowledge there's nothing that we could do to change their mind, I wanted to seek your thoughts on us sending them a letter expressing the disappointment of Athabasca County that their engagement has been non-existent from our perspective, and their communication with us has been zero. Now, in terms of the motion is to receive the report for information. Do we want to amend it or do anything to add direction? Or are we okay just taking it in and watching it disappear? Do I speak?
Yeah, my motion would include provide or to direct oh my goodness, to direct administration to send a letter expressing our concerns over lack of consultation with the municipality. It's very disappointing to see the CIBC leaving the Village of Boyle and the surrounding community. I've noticed a lot of residents expressing concerns that they were very caught off guard by this and that they're worried that the service levels that they'll receive will diminish. So although our letter probably won't have that much of an impact on CIBC's decision, it is very disappointing to see.
Other discussion at the table? Councilor Grilic, floor is yours. With your mic, please.
I think very much like a school closure, it's very important to the community to not have a loss of services because it is detrimental to the community, and we should strongly support retention of that office as much as we can.
Are you ready for the question? The question is on the adoption of the motion to receive the report for information and direct administration to send a letter expressing the concerns of the county over the closure of the branch and the lack of consultation with the county and its residents. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The count is 9-0 and the motion is adopted. Councillor Holland, you added 7.4 to the agenda. Do you have a motion you'd like to make?
Thank you. Yes, I would like to accept the recommendation, or put the motion to accept the recommendation. The county council receive the report for information. I just had one quick question with regards to both the local assessment review board, subdivision and appeal board, the tribunal, et cetera. Will there be a dedicated section on our website that places these documents so that they are accessible to the public?
I think there
I'm,
is.
Chairman, through council, I'm looking at Ms. Blair because I seem to recall seeing a section under in iCompass that might have that. If not, there's absolutely, that makes complete sense to include agendas and the decisions. So let's look into that. We'll look into that.
Thank you very much.
The motion is to receive the report for information. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, if you're ready for the question is on the adoption of the motion to receive the report of the Local Assessment Review Board decision for information. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The count is 9-0 and the motion is adopted. Councillor Mins, we're going to postpone that until after the delegation, if that seems logical to you, because unless there's something, I don't want us to be in a position of making a decision before we. Hey, Sarah Pillow. What time is their delegation? Is it 11? Oh my goodness. We might be done by then. Don't worry, that's not gonna happen. Well, I wouldn't let that happen to you on the first day back after a break. I was reading the minutes one time, it said something about 6:30. I couldn't remember what was going on that day, but must have been. Is there someone? So I put correspondence 8.1 on the agenda. We received this correspondence back from the Minister of Municipal Affairs. And as you all know, the past few years have undoubtedly been some of the most challenging in Alberta's history. And, you know, as a result of events that are beyond our control, municipalities in the province have wrestled with challenges, including the greatest public health crisis in our lifetimes, low oil and gas prices, municipalities from, Cardston to High Level and Athabasca have understood the pressures facing our government. So with, that kind of normal resolve, it seems like we go to RMA and we talk to our colleagues. Municipalities step up and endeavor to do the best we can with reduced provincial resources. And unfortunately, I think we're fast approaching the end of that road with our infrastructure, our services, our programs, and our communities all starting to seriously suffer. One of the hardest hits to municipal coffers came in December of 2020 with the repeal of the well-drung equipment tax, which has allowed local governments to collect money from energy companies based on depth of wells drilled. And you all know that that's been something that's been close to me as a serious thorn in my side, because the government is essentially buying, subsidizing industry on our backs instead of their own. While the loss of that critical revenue stream has hurt the county, we understood, I think, as a council, the reasoning for that move, and it was to encourage investment during an economic slowdown. But clearly that has turned around. So thankfully, the fortunes of Alberta are rising alongside global oil and gas prices. According to the economic dashboard, wells drilled increased 46% in the 1 year period between 2021 and 2022. And I know we saw that in our county and in the area that I live, and Councillor Gerlich lives especially. So with production booming, profits surging, municipalities shouldn't have to shoulder the infrastructure and administrative costs of increased exploration and development activities. The time has come for us to build strong reciprocal relationships between industry partners and the government. Municipalities have, borne the brunt of the downloading of those provincial costs. And so I would propose to you that we send a letter to Minister McIver expressing our extreme disappointment that the province is continuing to offer economic incentives to oil companies on the backs of rural Alberta and rural municipalities. Councillor Minns.
Thank you. I totally agree with you. When I read that letter, that's why I added on 8.1A. Was just due to the review, or there are no plans to reinstate the well drilling tax and equipment tax, and I was honestly very upset with that, because it's this complete utter demise to all of us to sit there. RMA has been pushing forward. As far as I know, we put in a resolution on behalf of the county to get RMA on pushing or getting this tax back, and to have it just thrown in our face again saying, no, we're not doing it. I take that as a big slap, and I would like to, I agree with sending a letter to them with our distrust of even like sitting down and talking about it anymore. It's just like, no, we're not doing it. I totally disagree with the wording in that, so thank you.
So you have moved that we send a letter?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Further discussion? Councillor Gerlich, floor is yours.
I remember the day when I was a little boy and they started taking oil from the tar sands, oil sands. And their perspective was that if they could take it out for $28 a barrel at their cost, produce oil for $28 a barrel. Today, they're producing oil between $10 and $20 a barrel are their costs. And I think it's more expensive to take it out now than it would have been then. And it doesn't seem to be any justification in any way, shape, or form for any type of financial assistance, because the oil companies have never been more liquid than they are liquid than they are now. And it's inexcusable, I think.
Further discussion, Councillor Holland.
Thank you, and I appreciate you bringing this forward, and the words that you brought forward with it. I'm curious if this is something that we can also add to our list for the spring RMA to sit down and have a conversation with the ministers.
You'd be probably as advised to have the chat with my coffee cup in the next room, but sorry, don't.
We can only keep lobbying and advocating as best we can, and
I think certainly in terms of the list of things that we talk about, Councillor Crummell, I acknowledge you and I'll give you the floor in 1 second. For us, it's really not our lane to tell the government what kind of economic incentives to offer industry. The challenge that I keep coming back to is they're doing it on our back and with our wallet. And, I have always said I would buy lunch every day for Lexi if I could have Joe's wallet. It doesn't work. If you want to provide an incentive, and historically our LGFF or MSI per capita has decreased over the last many years. Effectively, our grant funding through STIP decreases because the pool isn't growing. but the costs are growing, so your inflationary pressure is eroding the purchasing power of what can be done through those grant programs. And, we can't, the province is flush with cash and they can't keep starving us when they keep downloading costs. We've had what are we, it's almost $800,000 a year in our CMP costs now. When do they get their hand out of our pocket? Councillor Cromwell, I promised you the floor. It's yours.
Thank you. Just a bit of information. There is a proposed well site right now to be drilled northwest of Wandering River. Some of my residents were given notice that they would be horizontal drilling under their land to get to it in accordance with AER regulations, and a lot of upset about that. I was going to be bringing that to your attention here today. So I'm very much in support of this letter and very unhappy the way the government is doing things.
Other comments? Seeing none, if you're ready for the question is on the adoption of the motion to send a letter to the minister expressing our disappointment that the province is continuing to offer economic incentives to oil companies on the backs of rural Albertans and rural municipalities. Councillor Minns, would you find it reasonable to have that carbon copied to RMA members?
Yeah, RMA members, even MLA Van Dyken. That'd be a good one.
And our elected members,
Yeah. Brian Jean, yeah.
which would be Jean and Van Dyken.
Yeah, you betcha.
Sorry, Ms. Blair, the Minister Jean, MLA Van Dyken, and RMA members. Councillor Minns? Okay. Councillor Holland, do you want to speak before we?
Just a quick question, and it's probably no, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there any kind of a tax subclass that we can look at for these particular lands that the drilling is on, that we can
I think that's outside of our lane.
massage? Just checking.
Yeah, because otherwise some clever municipalities would have come up with it, but the CIO can address that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through the council, it's simply, right now, it's simply a part of the non-residential classification system that council has already, prior to my arrival, has already discussed some changes to that. A phased in increase to that would affect this as well.
Okay. And I think the way you get at it is sometimes maybe through road use agreements or other stuff. But probably it's a discussion that's worth having at a workshop, strategic planning session. On the question of the adoption of the motion to send a letter to the minister and carbon copy and RMA members and our elected representatives at the province, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is adopted. The count is 9-0. 8.1B. Councillor Holland, you have
Thank
a
you.
question you wanted to ask do you want to move a motion to accept these and then?
Well,
Or
I'm
do-
not quite ready to move the motion.
Okay.
No, I'm concerned and I have a question and looking for clarity. Being that this is an intermunicipal SCAB board and we have two of our municipalities that are on this involved with this have already asked motions on who to appoint. Where does that leave us?
This was a discussion that occurred in closed session last time, and I think that if you want to engage it, we should either enter closed session or maybe defer this to be something that we can handle in closed session.
Absolutely. I would like to defer that for closed session, please.
So Councillor Holland has moved that we defer 8.1B to be covered once we're in closed session. 8.1B, just once. It's the same one as last time, the intermunicipal relations. Motion to defer is non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, the motion is, or the item is deferred until we've entered a closed session portion of the meeting. We've already addressed 8.2. It's 9.1. Sorry, Ms. Blair, can you pass those out? And is it possible to have, did you let Okay, so Councillor Cromwell has a copy. I have a copy. So the summary on this is it's a request from the Crooked Creek Conservatory. This is 9.1 is a request from the Crooked Creek Conservatory to provide a letter of support in their seeking of a grant to promote the community energy improvement program in the region. The timelines are they need a response by January 20th. So it just missed the way it came in, and timing missed the cutoff and the timing of the meeting. Councillor Wallach.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the writing of a letter of support for the Crooked Creek Conservatory.
Councillor Wallach has made a motion that the county approve the writing of a letter of support for the Crooked Creek Conservatory on this subject. Any further discussion? Or time to read it? Ms. Blair, I had extra copy printed in case you wanted to leave one with the advocate. Councillor Holland.
Thank you. Just for clarity, as I'm quickly trying to read through this.
Yeah.
It mentions we have the verbal support from the town with the letter pending, but we don't need a letter from AC yet, which is us. The EOI simply asks if there are partners / supporters and who they are. Are we partners or are we supporters?
Supporters, I think.
Thank you. Just wanted that for clarity. Thank you.
And if we do the letter of support, it clears it off our table. We don't have to do some kind of verbal thing.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing no hands go up on the question of the adoption of the motion to provide a letter of support to the Crooked Creek Conservatory Society of Athabasca for their grant application. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The count is 9-0 and the motion is adopted. All right, it's time for coffee break. Why don't we, our delegation comes at 11, so we've got, if we take a 7-minute coffee break, that's, we've got half an hour to work through the first few closed session items. So in advance of the coffee break, is someone willing to move we enter closed session? Councillor Kapitanek has moved. We go to a closed session to begin addressing 11.1. All those in favor?
Aye.
Councillor Gerlich. At 10:30, and we'll recess until We're testing whether Zoom is carrying sound and whether YouTube has quit the sound. We're testing whether Zoom is carrying sound and whether YouTube has quit.